What's up, everybody? I'm Josh Meek, the Uber Geek. Thank you very much for joining me here on Pretty Dece, your daily entertainment and pop culture podcast. You can listen to Pretty Dece on the Anchor app, in podcast form in your favorite podcast catcher, or on YouTube. Just search for Pretty Dece on YouTube to find the channel and all the past episodes there. So in some comic book news, Marvel just got a new editor-in-chief. In fact, yesterday was his first official day on the job, and he's already wrapped up in a pseudo-scandal. His name is C.B. Cebulski. And to set the stage, a long time ago, about 13 years ago, there was a Japanese writer named Akira Yoshida. Akira Yoshida wrote comics for Dreamwave, Dark Horse, and Marvel. He wrote for Marvel for about a year, 2004 to 2005. And he wrote some Thor books, Thor Son of Asgard, and lots of X-Men stuff, the Age of Apocalypse series. He wrote some Elektra, some Wolverine, some Kitty Pryde, a whole bunch of one-shot comics. And he even did interviews at this time. He talked about growing up working for manga publishers, which led to him going to some U.S. comic conventions, which had him meet some U.S.-based comic professionals and getting a job over here working on Marvel. He talked about reading manga growing up and getting into American comics that his businessman father would bring home from business trips. The only problem is Akira Yoshida wasn't real. He didn't exist. He was C.B. Cebulski, Marvel's new editor-in-chief, writing under a pseudonym. Apparently, as early as 2006, rumors had kind of been floating around that that Akira could be a pseudonym, might not be a real person. No one had really ever seen him, had seen pictures of him, but Marvel and all the editors around Marvel denied that. But rumors abounded. In 2006, Bleeding Cool News asked then associate editor at Marvel, C.B. Cebulski, if Akira Yoshida was a pseudonym, and again, denied it, said that he had seen Akira around Marvel, and he was a really great guy. So those rumors kind of bounced around, were off and on, until it came up again in 2005, where things pressed even farther. Eventually, there was a podcast where names were changed, but they told this exact story. And now, finally, with CB finally taking the editor-in-chief role, he's fully admitted to this. So he came out and said that yes, he did write as Akira Yoshida, but that was a long time ago, and he's moved on. Blah blah blah. Apparently, Marvel at the time when CB was writing as Akira Yoshida had the policy that Marvel staffers who weren't writers weren't allowed to write or draw comic books, or at least they weren't allowed unless they were approved, and then they weren't allowed to get paid over their salary for doing so. So that was an attempt to create a situation where nothing shady could happen. You couldn't just hand jobs to people that were already in the company, and in skirting that was doing something potentially shady. He apparently wanted, at the time he was an editor and wanted to get into writing, and had been kind of planning to leave Marvel, but wanted to set up a writing career first. So he created the Akira Yoshida character and got his first job working on Darkstalkers for Dreamwave, and then went on to work for Conan, and then eventually got discovered and hired by Marvel, the company that he actually worked for as a real-life editor. And that had kind of gone under the radar until talks were in place to make C.B. Cebulski the editor-in-chief of Marvel. At that point, he confessed to the entire act. Something he could have been fired over, but confessed, pled his case, and they decided to go ahead and continue to make him editor-in-chief and to kind of, not do anything about it. But now the news here is coming out. Now, all of this seems like it could potentially be a little shady. He was trying to skirt some of the rules of his company, but maybe not actually bad, maybe not actually terrible, until you actually go back and look at some of the books that Akira Yoshida, or C.B. Cebulski, writing as Akira Yoshida, wrote for Marvel. These were books that featured heavy Japanese themes, Japanese characters, Japanese locations, and now in new light seem potentially racist. There are, if you're watching the video version of Pretty Dece, there are some images behind me of just some random pulls of the comics, and it's all wrapped up in honor and Japanese tradition and training as a samurai, stuff that when you look at it as a white person writing these things from the outside, pretending to be a Japanese man comes off as a little strange. Akira Yoshida wasn't the Japanese voice providing authenticity to these stories that at the time it seemed like he was. He was just an otaku, a Japanese obsessed nerd that was getting to live out his fantasies in order to write these comic books. Now, I don't think that C.B. Cebulski did anything hugely wrong by doing this. I mean, it's an interesting, funny footnote in his history. But Marvel, on the other hand, this doesn't look great. Your new editor-in-chief, on his very first day to have all of this come out, that's not a great look. And unfortunately, as the name Akira Yoshida, he didn't write anything that that was non-Japanese. He had to have written all of this very Japanese-focused stuff. So, certainly some hot water there for the new editor-in-chief of Marvel. Now, Sean Baby, who is a writer for Cracked.com, sent out a very funny tweet talking about the Marvel writer writing under a fake Japanese name and the name being Akira Yoshida. Akira being a very popular anime and Yoshida being the last name of a Japanese X-Man. That's kind of like naming yourself Cheeseburger Schwarzenegger. And yeah, when you look at it, knowing the actual truth, it's actually very hilarious that he chose Akira Yoshida for his pseudonym of all names. But that is certainly the craziness that's happening for Marvel right now. So that's going to do it for Pretty Dece for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Make sure that you like Pretty Dece on Facebook, facebook.com/PrettyDeceShow. Of course, follow Pretty Dece on Twitter @PrettyDeceShow there as well, and visit PrettyDeceShow.com. So I'll be back tomorrow, as always, for another daily episode. Until then, make sure you hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you are partaking of Pretty Dece on, so you never miss a daily episode.